The neon sign outside flickered ominously, casting a sickly glow over the deserted street. Inside the dimly lit bar, the air hung heavy with the scent of stale beer and lingering despair. The clock on the wall struck midnight, signaling the end of another long and dreary night. Behind the bar, Jake wiped down the counter with a tired sigh, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. It had been a slow night, the kind that made him question why he'd chosen to spend his evenings in this desolate dive. But as the only bartender in town, he didn't have much of a choice. With a resigned shrug, Jake poured himself a shot of whiskey, the burn of the alcohol warming his weary soul. As he raised the glass to his lips, he glanced around the empty bar, his gaze lingering on the solitary figure hunched over in the corner booth. The man had been sitting there for hours, nursing the same glass of scotch with an air of quiet contemplation. His dark eyes seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, their depths unfathomable to the human mind. There was something about him that sent a shiver down Jake's spine, a sense of unease that he couldn't quite shake. With a heavy heart, Jake approached the man, his footsteps echoing dully in the empty room. "Last call," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. The man looked up, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his lips. "Ah, but I'm not quite ready to leave just yet," he replied, his voice smooth as silk. Jake hesitated, a flicker of apprehension flashing through his mind. There was something about the man's demeanor that set him on edge, a feeling of dread that seemed to coil in the pit of his stomach. But he pushed the thought aside, forcing a smile as he refilled the man's glass. As the night wore on, the man remained in his booth, his presence a dark shadow looming over the empty bar. With each passing moment, Jake's unease grew, a nagging suspicion that there was more to this mysterious stranger than met the eye. And then, just as the clock struck 2, the man finally rose from his seat, his gaze fixed on Jake with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "It's time," he said, his voice low and menacing. Jake's heart raced as he watched the man approach, a sense of impending doom washing over him like a tidal wave. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, his throat constricted with fear. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. With a flash of blinding light, the bar vanished, replaced by a vast expanse of darkness that stretched out before them like an endless abyss. Jake stumbled backward, his senses reeling as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings. "Where are we?" he gasped, his voice barely a whisper in the oppressive silence. The man smiled, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Welcome to the crossroads, Jake," he said, his voice echoing through the void. Jake's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the gravity of the situation. He had heard tales of the crossroads, a realm where souls were bought and sold, where deals were made with the devil himself. And now, it seemed, he had stumbled into its dark embrace. As the reality of his predicament sank in, Jake felt a surge of panic grip his heart. He had always considered himself a rational man, a skeptic who scoffed at tales of the supernatural. But now, faced with the undeniable proof of his own mortality, he knew that there was no escaping the truth. The man stepped closer, his presence looming over Jake like a specter of death. "You have a choice to make, Jake," he said, his voice soft but insistent. "You can continue on your current path, living out your days in quiet desperation. Or you can embrace the darkness, join me in eternity as one of my own." Jake's mind raced as he weighed his options, his thoughts swirling in a maelstrom of fear and uncertainty. He had always prided himself on his independence, his refusal to be swayed by the temptations of the world. But now, faced with the ultimate temptation, he found himself wavering. And then, in a moment of clarity, the truth dawned on him like a bolt of lightning. "No," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "I won't let you have me. I won't be another soul lost to your darkness." The man's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing in anger. "You dare to defy me?" he hissed, his voice a venomous whisper. But Jake stood firm, his resolve unshakable. "I choose my own path," he said, his voice ringing out with defiance. "And it's not with you." With a roar of fury, the man lunged forward, his form contorting and twisting into a grotesque parody of humanity. But before he could reach Jake, a blinding light erupted from the darkness, engulfing them both in its brilliant glow. And then, in an instant, it was over. When Jake opened his eyes, he found himself back in the bar, the neon sign outside flickering in the night. He blinked in disbelief, unsure if what he had just experienced was real or merely a figment of his imagination. But as he glanced around the empty room, his heart filled with a newfound sense of purpose. He may have narrowly escaped the clutches of the devil himself, but he knew that his journey was far from over. And as he poured himself another shot of whiskey, he raised his glass in a silent toast to the unknown adventures that lay ahead.